I appreciate the flattery. And what sort of benefits do you see in a risk like this?
I'm not looking forward to these late nights.
Maybe I am letting my distaste for surprises get in the way of this. We may have connections with Administrator Bayou and the Freestar Rangers, but they aren't the ones I prefer to abuse. Well, I'm both glad and surprised to hear the one person who has one say that. But our strongest connection is local, with Ranger Pryce. I hope you're minding yourself while on the job.
I've worked with that woman for over a decade. Even her more aggressive actions never came close to this.
Once that tech hits a market, open or private, that control is gone. From a financial and marketing viewpoint, you're right. And maybe I'm being more than a little selfish by focusing on my own department. It stipulates that once activated, the user assumes complete responsibility for the hardware, its usage, and any risks that may come with using such a device. I'm Alexis Pryce, head of the legal department here, and I'll be direct.
Besides, if she wanted to acquire Infinity Ltd., there are simpler ways to go about it.
All right. I could use the entertainment. Tell me why Infinity is a good asset. Ularu framing her own protege. Sounds like something she'd do. Masako's lucky to have you at her disposal, even if you are a continual thorn in my side.
Yes, this is a serious overreaction. I've barely begun to put together an investigation team.
Jalen simply knows how business is done when it comes to Neon. Those arguments only scratch the surface of my concerns. Unfortunately, I can't argue with that. Completing your assignment is the priority. So much work to do. I hope this meeting is quick. And one unforeseen lawsuit could wipe out that benefit instantly. Tech like this only has good applications when you have complete control over who uses it. Ularu simply confessed to something this big?
Not to mention the legal repercussions.
If it was anyone other than Infinity, I assure you it would.
Infinity Ltd. Is a tangled mess of financial and legal issues.
Administrator Bayou runs Neon and is on the Freestar Collective's Council of Governors.
I'm not trying to be a hard ass. I just can't go any lower.
You don't bounce back from that. At least not with Infinity's legal team. Why else do you think my department is so successful?
Infinity Ltd. Is an enormous unknown. The legal and financial risks are too great. That meeting certainly didn't go as expected.
Choose your words carefully. If you expect me to respond to threats, you're sadly mistaken. But instead, he's chosen to waste his talents to protect the people of the Freestar Collective. Nice to know someone is. Everyone's too busy praising its completion to think about the dangers it could represent. Still not changing my mind.
Nay.
If you only had some real talent when it comes to convincing.
I prefer a CEO that makes my job easier, not harder.
If we could get Freestar Rangers on payroll, we'd be running this faction. So no, that's not the case. I can guarantee that Infinity Ltd. Was up to more than just the current charges.
Nay.
Shouldn't you be on assignment somewhere?
I'm pretty sure we're waiting on you. Let's just hope this decision to acquire Infinity Ltd. pans out.
As I previously stated,
You aren't the first person to say that. There's definitely something to be said for Ularu.
while I know Masako could guide us through this, I believe a more aggressive approach will be needed for the future.
And allow you to still be marketable to a competitor? I don't think so.
Now you've made it sound like a proper challenge that I can't help but accept. When it comes to profit, I suppose all my arguments do fall short. You heard correct. I've every reason to believe that Infinity Ltd. Is the Pandora's box of corporations. It's easy to put a positive spin on this deal when you're not the one that has to deal with the consequences. My team can handle anything. I see your point. You may be the greatest asset, aside from the internal neuroamp, that Ryujin has.
Nay. With Infinity off the table, now I have time to focus on more pressing matters.
Whatever you want. I don't have time for it. He could have been an amazing lawyer or businessman. I've heard enough. Too bad it wasn't as entertaining as I'd hoped.
Things are going to be interesting, with Ularu in charge around here.
Huh. Well, what do you know? I think you just convinced me.
While I know Masako could guide us through this, I believe a more aggressive approach will be needed for the future.
And you're right. My legal team is more than prepared to handle any surprise situations that might crop up.
You know how it is. I'm the one you've got to deal with. Like it or not. Especially after this mess with Infinity.
Which is why I hope you won't be an issue. Unfortunately, half my department's been poring over documentation, while the other half is writing up what legal guidance they can. That depends on your actions going forward.
She's qualified, but a little too heavy-handed for my taste.
Good. Then we should get along just fine. There's no denying the disadvantages either.
I really need to get back to my notes.
If you need something, make it quick. I'd like to make sure my arguments are solid before this meeting.
Masako's successor will obviously be Ularu.
At least if you're here, you're not screwing up out there.
I appreciate the vote of confidence, but it won't be easy. And I have a lot of questions.
Botched human trials and murder for hire?
If the board can navigate this current mess without falling apart, I'm certain of recovery. Nay.
Well, if it isn't my favorite operative. Something I can help you with? He has some amount of influence with his seat on the Council of Governors.
Whatever you need, it can wait.
Just be aware that some of us still have to suffer the consequences.
This internal neuroamp business is going to take a lot of discussion. I doubt any of it will be fun. I refuse to support the decision. Besides, I have enough to deal with now as it is.
Shouldn't you have an assignment to get to? Can we please get this started? I had to rearrange my schedule for this. What's the holdup here?
This exchange has been surprisingly insightful. But now, I really do need to get back to my notes.
You've got to be kidding me. Any legal troubles you cause as an operative, witnesses, getting arrested, are my troubles.
I cannot support the decision.
The process of finding and following up on all those threads won't be easy. But the real question is, do I want to? And the answer to that is no.
Nay.
Sounds like something my son would say. And no, I don't mean that as a compliment. You're right. Perhaps I am focusing too much on the negatives. If only pleasure was the word for it. True. But the fact is, I don't want to. I suppose I might be overreacting a little.
No way. It's my ass if something goes wrong here.
That's a decent argument.
To put it bluntly, it's bullshit. This is way outside of Masako's capability.
I can't imagine Imogene took that very well. Don't be surprised if I keep an extra eye on you after this procedure. Something about this internal neuroamp has never sat well with me.
To say once again,
the way I see it, you need what I'm offering more than I need what you're paying.
I'll do whatever I can to make sure it's either severely delayed or collects dust in storage. In an ideal situation, yes. And I suppose creating that ideal situation is within my power. Great, the bane of my department. If you need something, make it quick. I'm starting to understand what you're saying. Well, let's have a look at you. The operative is right.
Legal ramifications are a certainty, but the benefits far outweigh the disadvantages.
For one, our connections with Bayou automatically grant us a slight connection with the Rangers.
Look, I'd like to help, but
don't even get me started. Have you been spending too much time with Lyndon? There's more to this than just credits. All right, you've got me. I guess I am exaggerating the situation a little. He's the Freestar Ranger stationed here on Neon, and much to my dismay, my son.
This is a serious overreaction. I've barely begun to put together an investigation team. I second the motion.
Your guess is as good as mine. Jalen and I don't speak too often.
Plus, they're an enormous unknown. The legal and financial risks are too great.
All right. Yes, there are numerous benefits. This coffee isn't helping my mood. What's hidden within Infinity Ltd. Isn't a challenge. It's tedious work that I refuse to subject myself and my team to. Definitely a point worth considering. Those are reasons that may appeal to Genevieve or Lyndon, but not to me.
You may be the greatest asset, internal neuroamp aside, that Ryujin has.
Second, That tech is one major human rights violation that no legal team wants to fight. I can't imagine the mess their legal department has on their hands. Dalton, how does something like this happen? And not only that, the tech is out there to be advanced or modified by anyone who might get their hands on it. You should have allowed us to handle it. This is a serious overreach.
I refuse to support the decision. Besides, I have enough to deal with now as it is.
I misjudged Imogene. I never would have expected this from her. To remind you where we left off. So much work to do. I do care about people. The people at this company.
Just sit so we can get started.
She paid the price. You mean she's dead?
This may be news to me, and I will be reviewing the evidence closely. But this isn't something you just get to walk away from.
Please. If you want to change my mind, you'll have to do better than that. Those tactics aren't going to change my mind. I don't need to lean on someone who's mastered their role, and I don't want to start.
I'm just doing my job, you know. I'm sure you're on the up and up.
But that doesn't mean he's a free pass. So again, steer clear of law enforcement. I see what you're doing. And I suppose it's working. A little. Imogene's actions may have repercussions that go beyond Infinity Ltd.
I'm not trying to make your life difficult, you know.
The only thing creepy here is your misinterpretation. Your best interests. As an operative, the fate of Infinity Ltd. doesn't concern you. I'm impressed you all managed to handle the situation without needing my help.
Not to mention the legal repercussions we'd be facing.
If only there were more hours in the day. Masako is lucky to have you at her disposal, you know? We have a long-standing symbiotic relationship due to the contributions that Ryujin Tower brings to Neon. So like I said, stay away from law enforcement. I don't want to mess.
Legal ramifications are a certainty, but the benefits far outweigh the disadvantages.
If anyone can pull through this, though, and stay on top, it's Masako. Well, we're waiting.
Thanks to my predecessors, no. The user agreement for neuroamps is very clear. First off, if I find out you use that device on me, I will tie you up in court on whatever charges I can conjure for the rest of your life. Because the external neuroamps are built to help the user on a personal level. So steer clear of law enforcement. Just stay out of trouble and we should get along fine. You don't recall our conversation after you were hired?
Coffee, finally.
I'm not sure how the leader of an exploration club would change my mind. The benefits definitely exist. It's just, are they worth the risk? Yes, you have quite the history with the Freestar Rangers yourself. I don't think you're looking at the big picture. One thing I definitely know is that you are starting to annoy me. I do get a little out of touch at times. It's an argument worth considering, and yes, they can be abused. But that's why there are laws regarding improper usage. That'd make my job easier. Busy is an understatement, but most of what we deal with is considered routine, so our workload is manageable. You've got to be kidding me.
There's nothing to talk about. I've already made myself clear.
They aid in reason, communication, confidence, all things that can make the difference in a person's self-image. I refuse to be blindsided by another corporation's past, so this is going to take a lot of time and patience. Let's hope your best is good enough. I mean, I could handle it as well as any other high-profile situation. Regardless, I can't in good faith vote for an undertaking that would put enormous pressures on my own department.
Agreed.
Now, I can only assume you're referring to Infinity Ltd., and there's only one right decision regarding that corporation. Complete dissolution. I hate these last-minute meetings. It's really anything good. Talent like yours belongs in the courtroom. You've been very busy, and therefore I've been very busy. Hardly. Jaylin knows how business is done in Neon.
I need to focus, if you don't mind.
Are you trying to add to my stress right now? It's unfortunate Laru's no longer alive to interrogate.
I'm glad you understand the position I'm in here.
I'd hate to be on Infinity's legal team when this story breaks. I do pride myself on solid contracts, and this one would be especially challenging. Ularu's actions may have repercussions that go beyond Infinity Ltd.
She's ruthless in ways that Misako isn't, and ruthlessness may be just what we need if we're to stay ahead of the competition.
It's always prompted by a special occasion or tragic event of some sort.
Surely I don't have to explain why I'm in agreement. I'd rather not spend the rest of my life in a courtroom.
A certain amount of confidence during the negotiations would go a long way in this situation. You can't possibly understand all the ins and outs of an acquisition like this.
Well, I feel like that lifted quite the weight off my shoulders.
Not much to discuss there. I believe I've made my case quite clear to Misako on why I am against it. And the public often gets what it wants. It's called being prepared. Something I think an operative would be familiar with. I see now where your experience comes into play. I'm finding myself unable to disagree. Any legal troubles you cause are my troubles. Steer clear of law enforcement. We aren't a close-knit family, unlike some who work here, and I'm under the impression we both prefer it that way.
Sorry, but I can't. Masako's pulled this company through some rough times. I'm willing to bet she still has a few cards to play.
I prefer to operate on an abundance of caution. But maybe it is a bit much. Point taken.